Good afternoon. Welcome to the Defiant Students Voice with your host, Lifeline Guta, the national spokesperson of ZINASU. Today I'm hosting Passionate. So, Miss Passionate, do you mind if you fully introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers at the same time?
Okay, my name is Passionate Fuza. I love to call myself by my favorite nickname, aka the Woman King. I will not delve much into why I chose that nickname. Um, I'm an academic activist, a gender equality activist. I'm a human rights defender, among as many other, and most importantly, the youth participation in decision-making processes. I think basically that's all about me.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the Defiant Students Voice podcast with your host, Lifeline. So, today I want to focus on the campaign which is being led by ZINASU, or which is being led by students at large. That is education without barriers. I've been following on Twitter, I've been following on Facebook, in different social media accounts, in different social media platforms. I've seen the mantra, hash education without barriers, hash education for all. So today, I want you to discuss briefly or to give us a brief insight into this campaign. I believe it's still ongoing. It's something which is still in the process. So I want you to give us a brief background on that campaign.
Okay, I would say what motivated that campaign is something which is worrisome and something which is said due to a plethora of reasons and different situations that are being faced by students in tertiary institution. For the masses or for the students to come out in public on Twitter to say education without barriers or education for all, it means that that sentiment of education without barriers or education for all is no longer existing in Zimbabwe, is no longer existing in tertiary institutions that we are coming from, whereby there are various factors that are hindering education for all. We're seeing dropouts, we're seeing exorbitant fees hikes, which are not even matching with the salaries that our parents are getting. So basically, this is the background of education for barriers. It's just a campaign to let the different stakeholders of the country, to let the president himself to know, because it's the chancellor of all universities, to let the government and the parliament at large to know that this is what we are facing as the students in tertiary education. So this is just a campaign whereby we are seeking their attention to come and address this issue at hand.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll delve to my first question. What does education without barriers and education for all mean?
Okay, interesting. So I would answer this question in this way. I would say in Zimbabwe, maybe Africa or the world at large, we have three classes of people in the society. We have the upper class, we have the middle class, and we have the lower class. And due to that, we see that the lower class and the middle class constitute a lesser percentage of the lower class, which constitute the majority of the masses in the country. So when we say education for all or education without barriers, we are looking at different policies. We're looking at different fee structures. We are looking at different administration structures that can accommodate all these three classes in their fee structure when it comes to comparing to what our parents earning. For example, almost 60% or even more of the citizens in Zimbabwe, they're earning below the poverty datum line. So what is going to happen to the students of those parents, of the students of the civil servants, the students of the vendors, the students of the same teachers that are striking almost every year because they are complaining about earning peanuts? So you find this is very worrisome, whereby in this country, yeah, slavery seems like to have gone, but people have seemed to be slaves of the government, whereby they are now being given a cute name, civil servants, yet they're earning peanuts at the end of the day. So if, for example, at any institution where I come from, the University of Zimbabwe, the lowest fee structure is the lowest fees amount is 470 US dollars, and the accommodation fee is $715 per semester, which is 3.5 months or 4 months maximum. And how much is my parent earning? They're earning $200, 150, others maybe 300 in maximum. And they have a family to cater for, they have rents to pay, they have tax which was imposed to also pay. So I just want to pose a question to the world, to pose a question to Zimbabwe, even the government itself. They should ask themselves, Kuti, the money that they are giving our parents, can they earn a living through that? And can they even pay our school fees? Because I'm not the only child. I have siblings back at home. We want to put food on the table, whereby eating every day, or even at school, it has now become a day-to-day hassle and even more harder for a girl child. So I would say there is no education for all in Zimbabwe as it stands currently, because most of us are not even affording the school fees. This is why you see students are being exploited. This is, and it's very funny, the name they've given it, the work study, whereby you assist yourself coming to school. But according to me, it's just the devil coming in fox fay, whereby it's being face powdered to come out nice, but I'm supposed to be concentrating on my studies. And to the same Minister of Education, Amon Murira, he learned at a time whereby education was affordable, accessible, and even getting a grant. So what's happening to now? What is happening to the future of Zimbabwe? So I'd say there is no education for all, and the education that we have right now is full of barriers.
Okay. I understand what you said, but I've got a point to raise. When the minister, the professor himself, when he was interviewed, he mentioned that there are work for fees programs, and he also mentioned that students, those who can't pay full fees before exams, they should be barred. They should not be barred from writing exams, but they should come up forward and visit the administration. Then they liaise with the administration. They tell the administration their problem. Then there's a work. There's like what do I call it? There's a plan, a payment plan that is implemented for students to make sure that they write their exams, they are not expelled, or we can say they are not deferring, or they are not dropouts. But from that gesture from the minister, can we say the minister is being considerate on that aspect?
According to me, I would say the minister is totally inconsiderate. Given fact number one, it seems like he's not fully aware of what is happening in the different administrations and different tertiary institutions. How can, for example, from where I come from, you're supposed to pay 60%. That's what they take. And for that percentage to go to 30% or 20% or even 15%, we take it upon us as students to fight for that percentage to be decreased to a percentage whereby everyone can afford to come forward and do the payment plan. And the payment plan as it stands now, it's even hard to go about with the payment plan because people have credits from previous semesters due to the fixed that has been happening, because there are other students who are not even able to write due to that 60%. The same 60%, they were saying that if you pay 60%, then you come and do the payment plan. And sometimes the challenge is you just go, yes, and do the payment plan on paper, but you are so full aware that my parent, by this deadline that they want me, because there's a stipulated deadline, you can't say I'll start paying in November, whereby the semester is in May. You see, so you have to write a payment plan in a date that is convincing to them that, okay, the school fees is coming. But the truth is the school fees going to come at that stipulated time, given the economy that is in the country at large and the money that our parents are getting. So I would say that is not being considerate at all. And as the War Minister of Education, I don't think he should be sipping tea every day at his house, knowing many students are deferring, knowing that there is exorbitant fees, because there is no institution that says school fees yakwira without the minister knowing. He signed that school fees to say school fees yakwira. So it's very worrisome. How is this even sleeping at night, knowing that the larger masses of the country is deferring, is working day in, day out at nightclubs, different parts of Harare, so that they can be able to put food on the table at school, they can be able to pay their own school fees. How's the War Minister sleeping at night? He should be resigning, because he's a total failure as a minister when this is happening in this country at this moment.
Okay, interesting. But I've seen the minister. He has been pushing. The minister in almost all of his interviews, he has been emphasizing on the work for fees program, and he has been saying that there is a loan which they worked with in conjunction with the CPZ, if I'm not mistaken. But it reaches to this extent whereby I want to ask: uh, are students interested in that work for fees program, or just because you are not interested, then you are not willing to exploit the benefits of that work for fees program? Because the minister is saying, no, the work for fees program is open to every student. And in one of his interviews, he said, students, you are shy. You're not even open enough, or you're not even courageous enough to go to the administration and say, no, me, my parent is a vendor, my parent is a civil servant, she can't or he can't afford this. But you're silent. Then at the end, you say, want education for all, want education without barriers. Yet you're being given the platform, you're being given work for fees program, but you're not exploiting them. Wow. What would be your comment on that?
Number one, the work study is not open to every student because the criteria itself is even harder for you to get that work study program. You can say at the University of Zimbabwe we have a number of about 20,000 students, and the work study program is offered to about 500 students. What about the other students? And the criteria they use, they want me to come to them as an orphan. I'm not an orphan, but my parents are ethnic peanut and I'm not affording. And number two, the work study is not a choice to every student because every student wants quality time to study. Given this modular learning of education 5.0, 3 weeks to learn Chinese at my age and the other week to write my exam, the work study on top of that, and my modules on top of that, and the stress of where am I going to get school fees, how am I going to eat today, it's a whole lot of problem all in all. And this loan system, they want us to pay back in a period of 1 year. Where am I going to get that money when I'm not even affording $470 a semester? So it's actually very worrisome. And if the minister is being able to get this, I think he should reconsider his statements in the next interviews because it's very infuriating and it shows Kuti he is not having students at heart. If students are not there, if students are not going to school, then why are you being a minister? Because we are the largest stakeholders of that ministry. So you should be worried. You should come to table to us and discuss things and better our lives as students.
Okay, thank you so much. But I believe the minister is still stuck on that same position. His position won't change. But as I was following recently on the parliament session that was done, Honorable Member Kumed asked the question, are students, is the Minister of Education doing enough to help students? But the minister, Professor Murira, he answered and said, students, they've got access to work for fees program and they've got access to information. But I want to ask you a question. You have students, you've been having that chance to access information in relation to the work for fees program. But the minister, he reiterated that the work for fees program is something which is open to each and every student. And he said that information is available to everyone. So I want to ask you, you're complaining and saying that information is like, it's like what can I say? It's like a top dress, which is not addressing the core issue. So are students so much aware of the information related to the student loan, which is said has been deposited with CBZ? Do you have access to that information?
To begin with, I think the main topic of the minister is about work study, work study, work study. Is it even in the constitution? When they wrote in the constitution that affordable and accessible education for all, was the work study being included? This is just an alternative to make our lives even harder because we don't have a choice. And they think it is what they can do for now to make the whole situation better, which I totally understand. But basing his arguments or basing his defense on the work study problem, I think him as a minister, it becomes worrisome. What is he doing in that office? Is the work study the major policy that he has to make sure that education is affordable and accessible to everyone?
Okay, then I want to ask you a next question.
Mhm.
How does the Ministry of Education and Responsiveness and lack of fiscal discipline affect students pursuing tertiary education? And what are the consequences for the unstable currents on their educational journey?
Okay, I would say the unresponsiveness of the minister is doing nothing but making the future of this nation sailing on dry land. As they say, the youths are the future of this country because we constitute about 67.9% of the large demography in Zimbabwe. Yet our life is even worrisome. Number one, education is no longer affordable and accessible. Number two, the youth are totally unemployed due to a plethora of reasons, including lack of qualification, because people will be dropping out. And number two, that education system which is being galvanized by the work study, at the end of the day, it creates graduates who are empty-headed. Because what I'm just focusing on is passing an exam and getting my degree certificate. But am I skilled enough to be in the work field and contribute to the rising of the economy of Zimbabwe? As they say, "Nyika inovakwa nevene vayo." How can we be able to come into play to make sure kuti Zimbabwe yavakika nevene vayo when we are graduates who are empty-headed? Because we are focusing more of our time on the work study and just passing the exam, but not understanding the true concept. Imagine a lawyer who's becoming a lawyer on education 5.0, learning in a space of 3 months. How much can you grasp? How much can you understand? So it's worrisome. And this structured currency also, it's just adding salt to the wounds that we already have. Number one, there was no collaborative and consultative inclusion that was being done to us as students and maybe the youth at large or Zimbabwe at large concerning the structured currency. Number two, the structured currency is even nowhere to be found as it stands, and there are even additional expenses that are even necessary. Imagine parent wako anotambira $250, iye ega anoda $80 a month yekuenda kubasa nekudzoka because akusisina transport ye50 cents. Pari kunzi 50 cents kunzi $4 mukombi muri kuchinjwa mahelo kana maspads. It's very worrisome. And at school, distance unofana kufamba, we used to save money back then, whereby unokwira 50 cents kuenda kuchikoro, 50 cents kudzoka. Now it's $1. So how much am I using per month? How much am I using a semester? And how much is my parent even getting for me to finance myself for such a transport structure iripo recently? And at the end of the day, I need to pay fees, I need to go to school, and I am a non-res because the accommodation fee, we can't even go there to begin with.
Okay, sorry to interject, but I remember in a letter written to the ministry, to the permanent secretary of the ministry from the president of ZINASU Campaign, he mentioned that later it makes mention of additional expenses. And they're saying that now students, whereby they used to pay $1, whereby they used to pay 50 cents, they're now paying $1. So are you saying, can it be said those are the additional expenses?
Yes, those are the additional expenses. It starts from the grassroots, the simple things, because if you are using $2 to and from use it every day plus the $2 to go home and back for, that's $4 a day. You need lunch. How much is it going to be at the end of the month? How much is it going to be at the end of the semester plus the school fees? That's an additional expense all in all. When you want to buy something, kuma shops, you're forced to buy something that you don't want, starting from $1 because change yacho haitoriko.
Okay, thank you so much. Then, during your campaign, that is Education Without Barriers, you have mentioned about lack of fiscal indiscipline. You have mentioned about administrations, different tertiary institution administrations, not even adhering to the fiscal challenges which are facing students. And to an extent whereby there's always the fight between the use, the demand in fees using the United States dollars, and the demand of fees using the local currency. But I want to give you a scenario here. In this current status, there's an institution which is saying 50-50%, 50 in United States dollars, then 50 in local currency. How is it working currently, given you said you don't know more about ZIG, you've never been in contact with ZIG, you've never been in contact with the structured currency. So if you say an institution is paying 50% in United States dollars, then 50% in the local currency, how are you managing? How are you paying for the local currency?
Okay, to begin with, initially school fees was not even supposed to be paid in United States dollars in a country where we have our own currency. And most of our parents, they're earning the local currency. They were, I don't know now due to this ZIG structure that has been introduced lately, but I'll say it's quite a challenge because where will I get the other 50% of swipe, ZIG and swipe to pay my fees? At the end of the day, you are forced to pay the whole fees amount in United States dollars, which at sometimes you don't have it all in all. Where will I get $715 for accommodation plus another $700 for school fees to make it 1,400 United States dollars per 3 months? And how much are our parents even earning? So it's really a challenge. And the sad part is the school will not even stop running considering the predicament that we are in. Exams will still be wrote. This is why a lot of students have missed the exams. A lot of students have even dropped out of school. They even lost hope in this education. They've even agreed kuti tertiary education now, it's now business for the elite and not for us, the middle class people or the lower class people. This is how the situation is right now.
Okay, thank you so much for answering that question. So basically, we are saying uh, lack of fiscal indiscipline in those institutions is something that can be attributed to the government at large. That is lack of having a proper consultation in relation to the structured currency. You mentioned that where can you get the swipe? I've heard recently. I know most of your students, most of your swipe you get them from money changers, but now you see there's a cat and mouse game between the law enforcement and the money changers. So, but is there any other avenue where you can get swipe? Maybe for example, I can say banks. Can you get access in terms of swipe from banks apart from money changers?
I would say the interbank rate is the same as paying school fees in US dollars. So when the black market used to give a swipe, it was easier to the fact that if the school fees is 600, maybe you'd pay that school fees in 500 or even 470, which was affordable for us, which was even advantageous. So this cat and mouse between the law enforcement and the people from the black market out there, I'd say to their end it's justified, but the fact yekuti mari yacho hakuna and our parents havana and this cat and mouse is coming in intervention, it's even making everything harder and we are left with no choice but just to pay the school fees in United States dollars as they want, because at the end of the day we still need to acquire that degree.
Okay, then I'll go on to my next question. What steps need to be taken to make free education for all a reality in Zimbabwe?
I think steps that needs to be taken, number one, the government, the chancellor, the institutions, administration, they need to take school fees which can be relatable, which can be payable to everyone else in this country, regardless of race and class. Number two, they need to be education subsidies, whereby the budget that can be imposed on the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education can at least cover some of our expenses so that we don't pay so much large amount of school fees, or whereby school fees like keep on hiking. And all this issue that we're in always go back to the national question, always goes back to the economy, always goes back to the government, because last time when fees hiked at the University of Zimbabwe, their reason was food commodities have risen up. And who does that goes back to? It goes back to the government. And it's now affecting us because we are the ones at the receiving end. We are the ones that are being affected more. Maybe they don't even know how much rice cost the chancellor of universities or the minister himself, because he affords, but we don't. So they need to take all of that into consideration, whereby the budget they can allocate to the Ministry of Higher Education is meaningful. How can they give a larger budget to the defense forces and a lesser budget to the education? Are we in war in Zimbabwe? And are we looking forward to be in war anytime soon? But education is an everyday thing which needs to be invested in. So I think those are some of the ways they can do to make sure that everyone attends